Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. It's Saturday. I got the day off. We got things to do. So we got a little time to work on the 27 Ford behind me, and if you watched the last episode, we did the Fender on the passenger side, and I said, I'm gonna do the Fender on the driver's side off camera, because what, you know, guess what? I didn't do that. When I did the other Fender, I already had the thing tacked on here, so today I'm gonna get a little more into how we fit this thing to this thing, and by this thing I mean how to fit a Model A Fender to a Model T body. Now, we have already cut the profile that deals with the curvature of the bodies in previous videos, but now this shape is not the shape of the Fender. So we're gonna bend it into shape and we're gonna tack it into that shape, and then, much like the last video, build the structure to keep it in that shape. What do you think, dog? So fortunately for me, the fender well shape on this car is actually in remarkably good shape considering the condition of the rest of the car. So that gives us a good template. We know what to fit it to. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this tape off, give this a tiny little grind right here on the edge so that we've got something to weld to. After all, we're gonna go back in and weld some bracing in slash structure slash kind of what we did in the last video. We're gonna use the parts we cut off and then build some more parts to go with it. So let's do it. All right. Come on. This is what you should see. Now that we've cut this structure out, this whole fender, it's, yeah, loosey-goosey. So what we're gonna end up doing is kind of, you know, tweakifying it on the car, make sure it fits, and then tack it, and then stick it into that position until somebody cuts it apart again in the next 100 years. All right, so I ground off as little as possible to get a decent tack on to the car. I'll hit a couple specific spots at some point once we get the fender on and just hope for the best that way. I'm doing that because I'm trying to preserve as much of, well, you know, the thing that it is, because, well, it's not like I'm trying to build a rat rod, and I don't even like that term or anything like that. It's more that, if you've watched the channel, you already know that I feel like if I actually restored this car, there would be so little of the Henry Ford steel left that it would, and how much character, man. It took 100 years to get this way. Who am I to erase all that? So we're gonna get it structural, we're gonna get it sound, we're gonna fix the missing parts, but then outside of that, you know, we're just gonna let it be what it is, man. So this car is sitting on a boxed but otherwise factory Model A frame. So the fenders are currently positioned basically by mounting holes, right, on the frame. So the front fenders are where the front fenders go for a Model A. That helped us line up our body to where it will line up with the wheel and also the fender. And then we've got our fender, and we're going to bolt that to the original holes on the fender apron, tack it to the body, and make the rest of the mounts to attach up here where it's not a factory connection. In addition, all of this cutting was because these are coupe fenders and this is a touring body. If I'd had Model A Phaeton or touring car fenders, maybe it would have been different. I don't know. I didn't have them. Pro tip, if you're gonna drive all the way to the hardware store to get a couple of bolts, just buy the box, man. Just buy the box. Buy the box. All right, let's take old loosey-goosey here. Let's help ourselves out a little bit. You know what? Considering I've done this before, you'd think I'd be smarter. Oh my goodness. It's gonna be that kind of day, apparently, gang. I thought I'd had enough coffee before I got into this. That may not have been the truth. First connection made, that's fine. We can adjust all that, we will. We gotta get this connected. Those factory spots should line up okay. And then by doing that, we gotta lift this whole thing up and blah, 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 you know, fit it. You know, that's what I'm saying. So let's see if we can just lift this jack and see what happens. Way better. Okay, okay. All right, here's what we gotta solve, right? We got a couple of boots. We got a couple bolts up here in the fender apron. Now, this is the thing to see. Like this gap right here, if I just wiggle this fender around, that's kind of old Model A shape, and if I stretch it and kind of wiggle it, it doesn't seem like much, but it's a mountain, especially when you're talking about looking right for a hot rod, you know? It matters, man. A lot of things have to happen if you're customizing or even just repairing an old car, because I think it's like 50% measuring and 50% your eyeball and going back and forth until the two split the differences is essentially all you can really do. Now this is relatively easy. We need this radius to fit this radius. However, we also need the gap from our fender to our tire to be the same on both sides. So we spent a ton of time on the other side. Let's go get some reference points to figure out exactly what we need to do. So first of all, in here, the way that I've got this set up is we've got some bolts in the original holes up toward the front, but because we're pulling everything out just a little bit so that the tire doesn't stick way out of the fender, because that's the look I want, the apron kind of pulls out this way the further back it goes. Now I've set that up by clamping these, and you can see the fender apron right here. In theory, this hole, you guys see this? This hole right here would line up with this hole. So that's how far we've gone out. It's about 1.25 inches, probably, but I've measured from the end of my fender apron to the inside of my actual frame to get a sense of how far off the frame the fender apron is. And I got 2 inches, and that's on both sides. So that's equal for right now. So I went ahead and jammed this tire back on so I could show you guys, and I added this piece of angle iron back in. Now, against the tire, I have, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch gap right there, but back here, if I force it, I can make it go back there, but this is kind of the right look. By pushing this back, it twists the fender into some wonky shape, so I'm happiest with this. So that gets us, I don't know, 7/16 or something off the tire. These are not perfectly accurate measurements. We're just looking for a reference. If we're 1.5 inches off the tire on the other side, we've got a problem. We are like 5/16 off. We got about 1/8 of an inch gap on the other side. We have about 7/16 on this side. So 5/16. Let's find it. In order to detective this out, you got to figure out where it could be. So the easiest thing to fix is where I'm gonna look first, which is if this fender apron is actually pushed in a little further than the one on the other side, well, all I have to do is undo that clamp and adjust it out. Next, we're using the tire as a visual reference because, well, that's what we're gonna see when we look at it. But what if the rear end isn't perfectly center? What if I boned it? Like 5/16? That means if I'm 5/32 off one direction, that will manifest itself into 5/16 on one side, because one side will be 5/32 too far out, the other one will be 5/32 too far in, and when we're measuring from one side to the other, that'll show up as 5/16. Now the next most likeliest place that it could be, or equally likeliest, I don't know, is the body. If you followed the channel and you followed this epically long and slow build, you'll know that this body has been in pieces a couple of times, and the subframe has been done a couple of times. The bubbed version that I got was really bad. I built a version that was also really bad, and then we pulled it all apart and I re-subframed it. And what that means is, after building the new subframe, if the body is not totally centered on the frame, then, well, where this connects to this, that could be another place where we're off, sending our equilibrium into unequilibrium. And with hot rodding, gang, it could be all three. I could have a 16th off in the rear end, I could have a 16th off in the body, and I could have a 16th off in whatever the other thing was that I said. Hell, the rear end could be a 1/2 inch off that way, and the body could be a 1/2 inch off this way, and they would cancel each other out. So, like, you know, I've confused myself. Anyway, simplest solution first, and it's probably gonna be the way we solve it. No matter where the problem is, if I adjust this fender apron, then that will kind of do the thing. 1 7/8 if I line up the tape at the corner of the fender apron and measure it right there. 2 and a skosh. Not quite a 16th, but almost. But if we round up to a 16th, that means that fender apron can come out 3/16, and then we're roughly 1/8 of an inch off, right? So that's where I'm gonna go ahead and solve this problem. I'm gonna go ahead and take the whole difference right here. So let's justify. Let's get a clamp-a-doodle on there. Oh no, I'm all out of clamp-a-doodles. Dang it. More prepared now. All right, we're lined up at 2 and a skosh in there. You know, everything's a little bit in flux and in tension, but I think we can make it work. We're kind of clamped together. This is just sort of all holding in place. And yeah, we got to get this tacked basically along the radius. We'll pull the tire, we'll build the structure from the inside, and then we'll weld it all up. See how we did. Sounds simple. All right, I grounded a little, but you know, it's not enough. So a little wouldn't do it. So a little is becoming more and more. All right, even after all that, I did a pretty mediocre job of getting any clean metal, but hopefully the MIG can just power on through. Gang, my tools are scattered to the ends of the earth. And by the ends of the earth, I mean just like distributed among all the daily drivers, because we've been working on them, man. I think the van has a lot of stuff in it. But for those of you that are digging on the van, since the last couple videos, I've been driving it every single day, and it has been doing super good. I think it's tuned right, bona fide daily driver status. That's why we got time to project this week. Whew. Obviously, gang, this wasn't a perfected cut or anything, so we're just gonna fit this to the best way that it fits. It's pretty good. It's also pretty good. This version might be our best version. Let's go ahead and mark this because I think that'll do the trick. We probably want to trim it off like right there, because that's where we start losing our connection, right up there. Dog's out there yelling at the yelling chickens. That's what dog calls roosters. So I just rotated it back roughly, I don't know, 1/4 inch or so, because now the holes in the fenders kind of line up. So I'm gonna bolt that on and then we'll figure out the rest. Guys, when you see me crawling on my hands and knees, would you remind me the car is sitting on a lift? I worked real hard to earn the money to spend it on this lift, so I wouldn't have to work so hard in here, you know what I mean? Always get the best ground you can, fellas. A little bit of spicy. So we're busting out the template that we used in the last video. Made a mark on a piece of steel here. I'm gonna cut that. We're gonna kind of test fit it, and then we'll trim, you know, the thickness that we want for the thickness. Here we go. Not bad for a first kind of test fit thing. In fact, so not bad, I think we're just gonna go on with it. Bang out some reference marks right yonder. Oh, nope, don't move now. Normally, I would just take welding rod and bend it from one point to the next, and when it looked nice, kind of just trace it with a marker. You sort of need 3 hands to do it, but you'll make it work if you have to make it work. In this case, we're gonna go right back to our template and just, like, I don't know why I'm making the sound when I can actually just do the marker. That'll look good. Woo, I should be wearing gloves. He said, while not stopping to go get some gloves. Doesn't only look sharp, it is sharp. This light's been dead for like 2 years. For some reason, it's still in here, and now it's become a magnet. Again, like last time, I'm trying not to weld this thing to the body of the car, because, well, that would be problematic. Because I do need this fender to come off. Let's drill some mounting holes, and then we'll pop her loose. Let's see if it'll turn loose. Got a feeling that it might not. Rip and tear, Bruno, rip and tear. we already have a way less wigglier fender. So let's go do some weldy, weldy, weldy. Now is the actual moment of truth. Like, did we screw it all up? Only welded. That's something. All right. Actually put a nut on it this time. Guys, the bagpipers have begun. Moses. It's supposed to get windy. I guess that's happening right now. I'll go get that door before, you know, the house blows down. Well, guys, she's looking good. I'm pretty happy. It lines back up. Our welds are lining up. It looks pretty tight to this radius. Dog approves. I'm still loving the way it looks. I am glad to have that off the list. Even having done the other one, that wasn't like nothing to do. It took, you know, 3-4 hours just to get it all done in the whole process, moving tools and stuff, and I still have to clean up. But now, I mean, the body is kind of roughed in. We've got some floors and some firewall work to do, but everything else is making what we have better. This is a big step. It kind of completes the final body panel mock-up situation. Guys, to me, this is pretty crazy. At this point, we have kind of a rolling car. We've got 4 fenders, 4 doors, a subframe attached to a frame. Suspension is all kind of mocked up and tacked in. Engine's tacked in, transmission's mounted, rear end's mounted. All of it needs to be final welded and triple checked, but like that one little fender sort of made this car a rough disaster that's got all the components kind of for the first time, which is pretty impressive to me and sort of encouraging. So I am actually looking forward to getting back out here and doing some brakes or chassis welding or whatever it is we need to do next, because it feels like we just turned a corner in a very strange way. Thanks for watching. Good luck on your projects out there. Thanks for watching Between the Sharks. As always, if you haven't subscribed, please consider it. If you have already, I really, really appreciate it. Dog also appreciates it. We'll see you next time on Between the Sharks when we build a little more hot rod.